entire syllogism. When you are thinking about correct sign, you're always thinking with an entire syllogism. That's okay, because a correct sign does have to be part of a syllogism. But the way you formulate your subjects in debate and the way you debate, if you want to make it in line with the text, then you should not always have to think about the syllogism. You should have to just try and get familiar with just thinking about the sign itself. Because when we say it is a correct sign, or it is not a correct sign, or it is the first mode, second mode, third mode, we say it is the first mode in the proof of that. And when I ask you for an example of the first mode in the proof that sound is impermanent, initially we feel more comfortable by saying take sound, it is impermanent because it is produced, and then you say it's produced. But actually you should just immediately go to the sign itself. Okay? It's not that there's anything wrong with that, but the way the texts are written and the way they talk about it, especially in Pramana, is all centered around the sign only. So whether it is a correct sign or a correct effect sign, correct nature sign, etc., etc., are all to be considered as qualities of the sign. And then whether it fulfills or has those qualities or not is to be understood in relation to the subject and the predicate. But the subject is always the sign. Whereas when you and Shmuel both have been debating, I noticed that the way you word it or the way you're thinking about it is always with the subject, predicate, reason as a syllogism. So we need to separate signs and syllogisms. That's very important. That's a mistake that I also made. And to be frank, that was a mistake that I made till very recently. Because only when I was doing the research now, I realized that it's talking about signs, not about syllogisms. And they are two different things. That's something that it's helpful to keep in mind. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Shmuel?
Yes.
Right? So when I say, there's different ways of word it. You say take product and the proof that sound is impermanent. It follows it is a correct sign, except. Take the syllogism, take sound, it follows it is impermanent because it is produced. It follows product is a correct sign, except. You're saying the same thing, but the way you word your subject and the way you formulate your debate changes a little bit. So my suggestion is just to try and see if you can switch that. Yeah? Henry? We do the tutoring, just when you do that, just try and see if you can get the habit of switching from syllogism to sign. Yeah, as the main kind of how you reflect on it or how you use it in the debate. It's more in line with how the texts work. Is that okay?
Yeah, like instead of syllogism with the signs, signs with the syllogism.
Signs by themselves, and then you connect them to various syllogisms.
Okay.
Yeah? Because when you say product is a correct sign, it can be a correct sign of an infinite number of syllogisms. You don't have to tie it to any syllogism. Correct? So then what happens is you start focusing on one thing and you see whether it has certain qualities or not. Yeah? Naga? So please just try and change your focus from syllogisms to signs. It will work better with Tarig. Yeah?
So can I have one more example?
So if I was to tell you, give me the property of the subject and the proof that sound is impermanent, what will you say? Give me an example of something that is a property of the subject and the proof that sound is impermanent. Give me an example. And now you tell me. Tell me.
And the example of sound is impermanent.
No, property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent.
I don't know how to put it.
That's what I'm trying to get to. So, when you say, give me an example of a correct sign in the proof that sound is impermanent, what do you say? You won't find it anywhere in the text.
And
Now just think for yourself in time.
I just can't think so quick.
No, you can take some time. Take 2 minutes.
Correct sign in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Does this sentence mean anything to you? No? Does it mean anything to you when I say, give me an example of a correct sign and the proof that sound is impermanent?
Not really.
Okay, but when I say give me an example of a correct sign in the syllogism, take sound, it follows it is impermanent because it is something. Give me the example of a correct sign.
That sound is
Impermanent because something else.
because it is produced.
So if I give you a syllogism, it's easier for you to think. That's what I'm telling you not to do. Because then you will always have to rely on 3 things always. Whereas that's not how Tarig is structured.
Oh, okay.
If I ask you for an example of a correct effect sign, what will you give me? Give me the example of a correct effect sign.
Correct. And there is smoke.
See? What are you giving me an example of? A sign or a syllogism?
I'm giving syllogism.
I'm asking for?
A sign. There is
That's what I'm asking you to start thinking differently. So, an example of a correct effect sign will be the sign smoke in the proof that on a smoky hill there is fire.
Okay. In
Got
the
it?
sign smoke there.
That on a smoky hill there is fire. Or a smoky hill has fire, whatever you do. Right? It's different from saying take a smoky hill, it follows it has fire or there is fire because there is smoke. There's different ways to think about it, right?
Yeah.
So when you think of signs, you don't think of syllogisms. It's a big mistake.
Okay.
Yeah?
Can you ask me the first question you asked Nada? What is the sign in
Give me an example of a property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent.
There is no such thing. There is no faulty subject.
It follows there is no property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Except
Take product. It follows it is a property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent.
why?
Because it fulfills the definition of property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Reason not established.
It follows it fulfills the definition of property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent because product is ascertained to be only existent with respect to sound in accordance with the mode of statement where sound is the flawless subject.
Reason not established.
What is it?
It is not a flawless subject.
What is not a flawless subject?
Sound is not a flawless subject.
Okay.
Sound subject is not a flawless
So you're saying generally product is not. Okay.
No, no.
Okay. Take sound follows it is not a flawless subject. In this proof,
Except.
in this
Except.
it follows it is a flawless subject.
Why?
Because it is the common locus of being that held as the basis of debate and having been ascertained to be product, someone is asking themselves whether it is impermanent or not.
Reason not established.
Which reason?
That there is someone who is asking themselves whether it is product or not.
It follows that no one is asking themselves.
No, sorry, because there is no one who ascertained that sound is a product.
It follows no one has ascertained that sound is produced.
Why?
It follows that someone has ascertained that sound is produced.
Except.
It follows it is ascertained to be produced.
Except.
It follows there is someone who is doubting whether it is impermanent.
Okay, except.
It follows it fulfills the definition.
Flawless subject, yes, but not of property of the subject.
What's not fulfilled? Is it ascertained to be existent, to be only existent on sound?
Except.
In accordance with the mode of statement?
Except.
And sound is the flawless subject.
But not in that proof.
In one proof is the flawless subject.
It is not a proof. It is not a flawless subject in the proof
That sound is
sound
impermanent?
is impermanent.
It follows it is not the flawless subject in the proof that sound is impermanent?
Except.
Why?
Because sound is impermanent is not a proof.
No, in the proof that sound is impermanent. Not sound is impermanent
Faulty
is the proof.
subject. In the proof that sound is impermanent is a faulty subject.
It follows there is no correct sign in the proof of that.
Except.
What does the text say? What is the correct sign in the proof of that? or what is the definition of sign, correct sign in the proof of that, like that.
The definition of correct sign in the proof of that.
It follows there is a correct sign in the
That
proof
which
of
is
that.
removed in the proof of that.
In the proof of that is what? In the proof of
In
that.
the proof of that sound is impermanent by the sign. Sound is impermanent by the sound product.
Okay, so take product. It follows it is a correct sign in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Why?
It follows it is a correct sign in the proof of that.
Except
It follows it is a correct sign in the proof of what?
of in the proof of that sound is impermanent by the sign product.
In the proof that sound is impermanent.
Why?
In the proof of that sound is impermanent. Does that make sense in English?
In the proof of that sound is permanent. Yeah, but let's say why.
What are you saying that's not right? Then?
That sign is impermanent. Sound is impermanent is not a proof. It's not a proof statement.
No, it is. The proof is proving that sound is impermanent. So when you say in the proof of that, or it's a, maybe that you can say it differently, proving that.
Proving that.
That is the thesis, and the sign is what is proving the thesis, or the probando.
I see.
Right? So when you say product is a correct sign in the proof of sound is impermanent, or in the proof that sound is impermanent, it's the same thing as saying proving that sound is impermanent. Right?
Okay.
Right? So it is the proof, it is the sign, it is the reason, and it is proving that sound is impermanent, it is proving that sound is whatever it might be. That's how it's understood. Okay? So when you think of it like that, you're not thinking of it as a syllogism. Do you see there's a slight difference, there's a shift? Do you notice this?
Yes.
Yeah?
There's a different emphasis.
Yes, there's a difference of emphasis. And have you done this? Just curious. Have you gotten out of, are you still in the syllogism habit, or are you thinking of just the sign now?
I have been
Good
slow in understanding this, but
No.
yeah.
Have you understood?
Yeah,
You've been doing it as a sign, right?
right.
Right, so that's the important thing. Because product itself is a correct sign in the proof that sound is impermanent. Product is a false sign in the proof that sound is permanent. Product is a same nature sign in the proof that sound is impermanent. Product is a non-observation in the proof that sound is not permanent. Right? So your subject is always product, whereas if you always bring in a syllogism, it's going to take you one step more to get to the sign. Whereas Tarig means division of signs. You were literally just talking about what makes something a sign, a correct sign, like that. Yeah? So that, now you're going to have to get used to this, because if you always tie it to a syllogism, you won't be able to answer these questions. Whereas all the definitions are definitions of the sign. So product is a forward provision because it is ascertained by a value cognizer to be existing only in the concordant class, in the proof that sound is impermanent. Correct?
Yeah.
By somewhat for whom it has become the second mode. This is not talking about the syllogism. It's only talking about the sign.
Oh, I see.
Yeah? So you need to kind of rework this. It will make it easier for you. I have a feeling it will make it easier. Just try. Okay? Okay. That was it. Can we move ahead with forward provision and counter provision? Yeah? Yeah? What's the definition of forward provision?
That which is ascertained by a value cognizer to be existent only in the concordant class, in accordance with the mode of statement, for a person for whom it has become the second mode.
Good. Yes?
Yes.
Okay? Say.
Say.
Say, give me the definition of forward provision in the proof that sound is impermanent. That's important. That's what I'm saying. Think of it like that.
Is a common locus?
No, there's no
No.
point.
So I have to reverse it. Let me see.
No. Do you remember it?
Remember it?
Do you remember it?
I just studied it. One second.
Say it to me. Or read it. If you want to read it, read it. Naga, these definitions you have to have like this.
it is ascertained by valid cognition to be
It is
extant.
that which is ascertained.
That-
Better if you say
that
that,
which
because
is-
it has to be
yeah.
something. Yeah?
That which is ascertained by valid cognition to be existent in only in the concordant class.
Which concordant class? Now you have it with something.
Hmm?
In the proof that sound is impermanent. So how will you say it?
Oh, in concordant class.
What is the concordant class in the syllogism?
Something that is existent.
No, concordant class. What is the concordant class in the proof that sound is impermanent?
I don't know how to put this text into the.
So what does concordant class mean?
That is something that is visible, like.
No, you're doing your English. You're using English literature to explain Tarig. They're very different things. Concordant class has a definition. Do you remember the definition of concordant class?
Not empty.
Yeah, that which. So these are the
That
things.
that which is not empty, right?
Of
That which is
not empty in general. It's specific. You heard her whisper.
yeah, I know. I studied that in the morning, I remember. Concordant and discordant class.
So tell me.
Discordant
What is the definition of concordant class?
that which is not empty or
Of
existence.
what is the definition of concordant class? In the proof that sound is impermanent.
That which is not empty of impermanent in the mode of statement is, with the mode of statement is.
Exactly. The concordant class, that's why Naga, there's many different terms and concepts in Tarik. If you don't grasp all of them, then you can just be listening to Tarik and it'll sound like someone is talking mathematics to a painter who's never studied these things. You have to have all of them nicely understood. So, concordant class, discordant class, concordant example, discordant example, correct concordant example, incorrect concordant, correct discordant example, then forward provision, counter provision. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah? And obviously your class has done it. But I'm saying you're not memorizing it strongly enough, and that's going to come in the way of your ability to debate it. Because all of these things, then you'll have to give it some English literature reading, and then it will become some kind of, like yesterday when you were saying only existent, the only is different over here, right? We're not using it like normal English. So you have to be able to get these definitions slightly more solid. Yeah? Otherwise it's very confusing.
I know, I understand that, but it is not easy for me to
I
understand
totally
this
agree.
text.
I totally agree. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to make that happen. But please now, after we've done it, if you don't understand it now, then you have to tell me now.
Okay.
Because otherwise I'll try and explain it, you won't get it, and then later on you won't be able to debate it. So let's do the definition of forward provision. So first now tell me the definition of forward provision in the proof that sound is impermanent. Now you can read it. You can read it.
Is a sign ascertained by valid cognition to be existent in only in the
Existent
proof
in the
that sound is
in the concordant class.
yeah,
Which is the concordant class now? Now you know which is the concordant class?
that is
Impermanent.
impermanent,
Right? So that which is ascertained by valid cognizer to be existent only in the concordant class, impermanent, by someone for whom
it has become the second mode.
in the proof that sound is impermanent. So you need to tie it to a sign, correct?
Yeah.
Okay? So that which is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be existent in the concordant class impermanent by someone for whom it has become the second mode in the proof that sound is impermanent. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Can
So I
you
will tie the sound is impermanent in the concordant class. When I say in the concordant class, sound is impermanent.
Yeah, you can say it like that. Yeah? Okay. Try with another one. Tell me the definition of the property of the forward pervasion in the proof that a pot is form source.
Oh, okay. The sign ascertain forward pervasion is in the proof of that is the sign ascertained by valid cognition to be existent in only in the concordant class. Part is what's that?
Form source.
Form source of the proof of that by the disputant for whom it has become the second mode.
In the proof of in the proof that form is form, pot is form
Pot
source.
is form source.
Right, because then you tie it to this, so that even when you're saying it, you're thinking of the subject and the predicate. Okay?
Yeah, I see CJ does that so well.
Yeah, so you follow, copy him. Yeah, you have to be able to do that. Okay?
CJ can
Yeah.
do that.
Okay? Are we
Okay.
good?
Yeah. Now I put it.
After you've done this, to be able to understand the forward pervasion, there's two things that you have to already have done first. One is concordant class and discordant class, both of these. And then, this is very important, I don't know how much you've done it. Have you done it actually? Concordant example, discordant example?
It is not in their class. I don't think they touched upon it.
You haven't done it much?
I've been mostly in the debates.
Okay. So then let's do it now because this is extremely important. The two things to understand the concordant class and the discordant, to understand the forward pervasion that are absolutely necessary are concordant class, concordant example, discordant example. All of which have definitions.
Yeah.
What is the definition of concordant class in the proof that sound is impermanent? So let's go like this. When I say concordant class in the proof that sound is impermanent, I'm talking about the predicate. Okay? It's called concordant class because it concords with what I'm trying to prove on sound. So everything that is impermanent will be the concordant class.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because it is impermanent. So it concords with what I'm trying to prove on sound. Why we just say the word concordant. Okay? And discordant class is the opposite. So not impermanent or permanent. Okay?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes?
Besides the notion that permanent is not a discordant class of.
That's a debate that we come to. That's what I'm saying. Let's say for now not impermanent.
Okay.
Okay, let's say not impermanent for now. Okay? Yeah? So the concordant class and discordant class refer to the predicate, basically, and the opposite of the predicate.
And generally speaking, they're direct opposite. It can be said they're direct.
They have to be direct opposites. Yeah? They have to be direct opposites. Okay? Okay? Fine. So, tell me now the definition of concordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
We just read, no?
He just read.
Oh,
We didn't
concordant
just read.
class.
He just read.
Okay.
We just read, both have to read. So now you also read. What is the
Definition of concordant class?
definition of concordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent?
That exists in impermanence, concordant class.
You have it written?
No.
Is it in the text?
Yeah.
Just read it.
Page 18.
Page 18
Again,
at the bottom. Page 18 at the bottom.
Sorry. Okay. Definition of a concordant class in the proof that is that which is not empty of the predicate.
What does that mean? To take pot, it follows it is a concordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
Not empty of predicate. Take pot.
It follows it is a concording class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
Why?
Because it is not empty of impermanence. In accordance with the modus statement, that's also there. In accordance with the modus statement, being or is. Is it empty of impermanence?
Empty of impermanence means it is a permanent.
Take pot, it follows it is empty of impermanence.
A why?
It follows it is not empty of impermanence.
Except?
It follows it fulfills the definition of concordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
It's not empty. It's not empty of predicate. That means
But predicate is what? What's the predicate here?
what is the predicate here? Pot is impermanent.
What's the predicate? In the sign, sound is impermanent because it is produced. Now see, if you say the syllogism, then it might be clearer. You have to stop. I'm trying to get you, I want you to get out of that.
Yeah.
What is the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent?
Sound is impermanent.
What is the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent?
Sound.
So take pot, it follows it is not empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Not empty is the predicate.
Not empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Pot is subject.
What's the predicate, Clara?
Okay. Yeah, not empty of impermanent.
You look at me, answer me.
Okay.
Don't say what you say. What's the predicate?
Impermanent.
Is it empty of the predicate?
Empty of predicate. Impermanence is empty of predicate.
Nada, what's
Accept.
take pot. It follows it is not empty of impermanence.
Impermanence means it's permanent.
No, that is, take pot. Is it empty of permanent or is it empty of impermanent or not empty of impermanent?
Not empty of impermanence.
Is it not empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent? You have to, you understood whether it's empty of impermanent or not. You always get confused when we start using the Tarig terminology. But you have asked me that you want to be able to connect these two.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to connect these two. So if you're not understanding, please tell me. Because otherwise I can keep saying the same thing 100 times. I'm asking you to connect these two. So when I say it is not empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent, what do you understand?
I understand it is not permanent, that part I get. Not empty of predicate means there is no predicate.
No.
There is
Why
predicate.
does that happen? That's what I'm trying to understand.
There
Okay, when you say it is not empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent, is it saying the same thing as saying it's not empty of impermanent?
Except
Why is it the same thing?
because why is it saying something? Because we are removing the predicates here by saying not empty of impermanence.
Why is saying pot is not empty of impermanent the same thing as saying pot is not empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent?
I don't know. Because
Why?
I'm sorry.
Because we are substituting the predicate to the predicate in this specific syllogism,
Which is?
which is impermanent.
When you're saying it is not empty of the predicate, it's just a statement that's floating around in the air. It means nothing until you tie it to something. So I'm saying not empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent. What is the predicate now?
Impermanent.
So when I say it's not empty of the predicate and the predicate is impermanent, what am I saying when I'm saying it's not empty of the predicate? That it's not empty of impermanent, because the predicate is impermanent, right?
Yeah.
That's how you need to connect these now. Otherwise, your definitions will stay here, your debates will stay here, and your beautiful English will never make a barrier, and you'll get stuck in some poetic
Okay,
mode of, yeah? So
I
that's
will
what I'm saying. Substitute the terms. When you're saying it's empty of the concordant class, immediately try and identify what the concordant class is. When I say it is the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent, identify the predicate. What is the predicate? Impermanent. It is a flawless subject in the proof that sound is impermanent. Which is the flawless subject? Sound. So you need to be able to make this connection quicker.
Okay.
Because you're not doing the connection between the general definition and then when you tie it to a thing. And on top of that, you're always waiting for a syllogism to come so that it becomes easier for you. Which means Tarig will become a little bit confusing. Okay? But I'm saying this again and again because on the first day you said you want to be able to stop from it being there connected to the thing. Correct?
Okay, yeah.
So, what is a discordant class in the proof that sound is impermanent now? No, first give the definition. What is a discordant class? Give me an illustration of a discordant class. What is a discordant class?
That which is empty of the predicate in accordance with the mode of statement.
Right, so what is the discordant class in the proof that sound is impermanent?
Empty of the predicate
Which is?
in the proof that sound is impermanent.
What is the, I just said, what is empty of the predicate? Which predicate?
That impermanence.
So say it now, it's empty of?
Impermanence.
Why is it empty of impermanent? Because impermanent is a predicate. So if it's empty of the predicate, it has to be empty of impermanent? Yes?
Accept.
In the mode of statement. Correct? Okay? So take space, uncompounded space. It follows it is a discordant class in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Except
Accept.
Why is it a discordant class in the proof that sound is impermanent?
Because it is empty of space. If
Space is empty of space.
No, I mean
It is empty of?
predicate. No?
She'll say it, you'll say it, but then I'll ask you now, so why don't you say it to me? You tell me. Saying the correct answer is not important, understanding it is important. Just because someone tells you and you say it to me is not helping you now. So you tell me, why is it empty of the predicate? Take space,
Because
it follows.
impermanence, right?
Take space, it follows it is empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Accept.
It's empty of the predicate, why?
Because it is impermanent.
Space is impermanent. Space.
Space. Because it is permanent.
So it's empty of the predicate,
Accept.
why?
Because of its permanence.
Because it is permanent. Or it is empty of impermanent. Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it the same thing?
I see now.
I hope so, because then I'll ask you 5 minutes later, you better still remember it, okay? That's what you have to tie it down. You have to tie it down, okay?
Okay.
Okay? Is that okay?
I have
Yeah.
a question. So pot is not empty of predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Correct.
So what is the meaning of proof?
Proof is so there's 3. Proof, yeah, sign, and reason. Okay? So in the proof that sound is impermanent is in the sign that sound is impermanent, or in the reason that sound is impermanent. But you're not specifying which reason it is. So if you want to specify which reason, then you say in the proof that sound is impermanent with the sign product, or with the reason product, or with the proof product. So when you say in the proof that sound is impermanent, it can be anything. If it is an established base, it follows it is a proof in this. It is a sign in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Accept.
But it's not, is it a correct sign in the proof that sound is impermanent?
Why?
Why, exactly, right? So in the proof that sound is impermanent will be in whatever you're using to prove that sound is impermanent.
So it follows that proof, sign, and reason are all mutually
Yeah, they're the
inclusive.
same thing, the different terms.
So it follows that sound is impermanent. So it follows that one could say what is not empty of the predicate in the reason that sound
Yes.
is impermanent.
Yes, you can.
It follows that sign in the reason that sound is impermanent. It follows that sound is impermanent is not a reason.
It is a reason of something else. You getting this? This is the tricky one.
Yeah.
Take sound as impermanent, follows it as a reason
Why?
because it is an established base. I'm just going to debate
Yeah.
the
Okay.
concept.
Okay. So this
In
is
that sense, right? In that sense,
yes.
it is a reason itself.
Yes.
Take sound as impermanent. It follows it is not a reason. Why?
Why?
It follows it is not a reason to prove that sound is impermanent, except.
So then what is so then what is empty of the predicate in the reason that sound is impermanent?
So I think to make sense of it in English, you have to say in the reason that proves, no?
In the reason that proves, yes.
You kind of have to say it like that in English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense maybe to say.
It doesn't make sense. Whereas when you say in the proof that sound is impermanent, it already brings with it the proof that proves. So you don't have to add that extra thing. But I think that's implicit, no, in the English.
A proof without a sign is not a proof.
Yeah, yeah. But so these three are synonyms, now, by the way, proof, sign, reason. They're all synonyms. But when you say proof, I think the fact that you use the word proof in English brings to mind that it is proving. Whereas when you say reason, it doesn't bring to mind the fact that it is performing that action. Yeah? So you'd have to say it like that, I think, Shmul, that makes more sense. In the proof, that is proving that sound is impermanent. Or in the reason, that is proving that sound is impermanent. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we mean.
But then again, so concordant class and discordant class are direct opposites in a given proof, which in a given proof.
Yes.
But concordant class, so concordant class and discordant class are direct opposites for a given sign.
Exactly. When you use a certain sign to prove something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah? But in themselves, concordant class and discordant class are not mutually exclusive.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
One thing can be both.
Yes.
Similarly, take subject, predicate, reason. It follows they're exclusive, they're mutually exclusive.
Why?
They're not, right? What is both a subject, is a predicate, is also a reason. That's why it says if it is an established base, it follows it as a sign, and it follows it as a sign in the proof that sound is impermanent. Yeah? That's why it says that, got it?
Yeah, so the proof does not refer to the syllogism, it refers to the sign.
Just the third one, exactly what I've been saying for a long time. Got it? Exactly. Now we come to the debate part. Okay? What are the divisions of discordant class? You don't remember? Oh, let's hassle them as well. You give it last step. What are the divisions of discordant class?
Other contradictory and non-existent discordant class?
Do you remember these three? Other discordant class, contradictory discordant class, and non-existent discordant class. Okay, one sec. Who's answering on Sunday? Who's answering on Sunday? You and?
I'm bullying CJ into
Has he said no?
I'm not giving him a question.
So he is doing it?
Yeah, I hope so. If he shows up, he will be sitting in.
Okay, so now all of you need to start together preparing already, sometime when you have time. The Tarig debate, make sure Hendrik is not there. And he's not hearing, but you need to start preparing the Tarig debate. But you need to all do it together, because just the two of them is not enough. So the Tarig debates you can all do together, and the Dura debates as well. So this year you have the most responsibility, your class. Yeah? In the monasteries, the elder classes have more responsibility. So we appropriate some cultural aspects of it and force them on you, like you're forcing CJ to keep things. So just help with all the debates, yeah? Tari, Dura, and your own debate. Okay? Now this is what I want to. Okay, so you've done the divisions. Give me examples of the other discordant class.
I'm sorry, I haven't refreshed this in
No
my
problem.
mind.
The example is, Naga, you remember?
We did this so long ago.
It can't have been that long ago. It's September. And you started in February. It can't be that long. It'll be like 3 months.
Other discordant classes.
What's an example?
We have non-existent,
No.
divisions.
So there's other, non-existent and contradictory.
Right.
The other is object of knowledge. Okay? Non-existent is horns of a rabbit.
Oh, horns of rabbit.
Yeah, everyone remembers
Yeah.
horns of a rabbit. And the
Object of knowledge.
contradictory is not impermanent or permanent. Okay? That's the one. Okay?
And the
Take
permanent.
object of knowledge. It follows it is it is the discordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
Except.
It follows it is not a discordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
Why?
Because it doesn't fulfill the definition of discordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
Reason not established.
What is the definition of discordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent?
That which is not empty of impermanence.
Discordant.
Yeah, that which is empty
Is
of impermanence.
Take object of knowledge. It follows it is empty of impermanent in accordance with the modal statement is.
Except.
It follows it is not impermanent.
Except.
That's why we say it, right? Take horns of a rabbit. It follows it is empty of the discordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
Empty of. Why?
It follows it is not empty of the discordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent.
It is empty of discordant
It is
class.
empty of the discordant class? No, of the concordant class.
Oh, concordant
Is
class?
it empty of the concordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent?
Except.
Why?
Um,
2 minutes ago you said I got it. What is the concordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent?
Empty of the predicate.
What is the predicate?
Horns of rabbit.
No. In the proof that sound is impermanent.
Impermanence.
Take horns of a rabbit. It follows it is empty of impermanent.
Except.
It follows it is not impermanent.
It is impermanent.
Horns of a rabbit is impermanent.
Actually, object of no, it becomes object of knowledge. So
Take
it
horns
is
of a rabbit. It
permanent.
follows it is impermanent.
Why?
Okay. Right? Take permanent. It follows it is a contradictory concordant class and the proof that sound is impermanent. Why is it a contradictory concordant discordant class?
Because it is empty of impermanence in accordance with the modal statement is.
And it is contradictory.
And it is contradictory. And it is contradictory with.
Okay? With impermanent. With a concordant class, right? Okay.
Atisha,
Yeah.
so in the proof that uncomposed space is permanent, object of knowledge is obviously not the other discordant class, right?
No.
So then it becomes
What will be the other discordant class? Is there another discordant class?
object of knowledge, of which being it is.
I can't hear you. What did you say?
I don't know what you're saying.
Huh?
I want to know the other discordant classes in the proof that
Do you
uncomposed
have an example? Why don't you debate this? Do all syllogisms have to have these 3 discordant classes?
I don't know.
Do all reasons have to have these 3 discordant classes? So you know why we say
Why,
other discordant, right?
Why?
For example?
For example, take object of
Now,
knowledge.
change the way you're saying it. What you're just about to say,
Okay.
say it differently.
Okay. But you asked, do all.
Yeah, so now say it like this.
Okay. Okay.
This in the proof that.
So take the sign.
There you go.
Take the sign object of knowledge.
In the proof.
In the proof that sound is selfless.
Perfect. You're saying the same thing, but you're saying it differently. Got it? That's what you have to try and do. Okay? Nice one. Take the sign, object of knowledge and the proof that sound is selfless, it follows it doesn't have the three discordant classes.
Except.
It follows it has a contradictory discordant class.
Why?
It follows it has a contradictory discordant class because selfless, the self is a contradictory discordant class.
Reason not established.
Take self, it follows it is empty of selfless.
Except. Self is empty of selfless. Why?
Nice.
No.
He's doing it by
Take
himself.
self.
It follows it is empty of
It
selfless.
is empty of selfless. Why?
It follows it is selfless.
Except.
It follows everything is selfless.
Except.
It follows there is no discordant class. Except. It follows there is no counter pervasion.
Except.
It follows there is a counter pervasion
Why?
because this is a correct sign. You said something very beautiful, but you're contradicting the text a little bit. So, do you see the problem though? Do you see where you're getting it from? I understand what you're thinking. You're thinking whether it exists or doesn't exist, it has to be selfless. But in Tarig, we also have that which is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be only not existent in the discordant class by someone for whom it has become the third mode, right? So there's that part also. So that's a good question mark. Okay, good. Now, yeah, Kritika, there. So you have another
No,
stranger one.
so then, what about for permanent? Would there
Please do this. I want to give them a little bit of the debate to do. Okay, with problems. Okay, got it? Yeah.
I have a question which
Yeah.
is tangentially related.
Yeah, totally.
So like you can anyway, it's not a it's like some kind of a strange question, but the concept of concordant class, couldn't they just say that? So instead of using the concordant class, just using the predicate?
You can, but you know why? The reason why you say concordant class is because in Indian texts they use the concept of concordant class. And the reason why you use concordant class is because when you're looking for the forward pervasion and the counter pervasion, you're not just looking at the predicate and the opposite of the predicate. You're looking at all instances of the predicate and all instances of the opposite of the predicate. That's why when you say it is a counter pervasion, you say it is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be non-existent in all the discordant classes, right? If you were to say in the non-predicate, then you have to say all the non-predicates, but the predicate is only not impermanent. Whereas when you say discordant classes, it's a bigger term, it's not ample. Did you say ample in English? Ample. No, it's a wider term.
Wide,
It's
yeah.
it's a bigger term that accommodates everything that is not impermanent. Whereas non-predicate is always tied strictly to the direct opposite of the predicate. Yeah? And when you say concordant class, you're talking about everything that is impermanent. Whereas if you say predicate, you're only talking about impermanent. So to separate the idea that when you're thinking of a reason, you're not just thinking of the predicate or the opposite, you're thinking of all the instances they use the word concordant class and discordant class. Yeah? Is that okay? Okay, so it's not tangential at all, it's actually relevant. Okay?
So then I can just complement it by giving an example that's
Yeah,
appropriate.
Exactly.
So for example, if one were to say take uncomposed space, it follows it is impermanent because it is an object of knowledge.
Yeah.
So object of knowledge exists in non-predicate because it exists because it is non-impermanent.
But it exists in the concordant
But
class.
it does exist in the concordant
There you go.
class.
Right? That's what it means. Because if you say it exists in the predicate, you think only of impermanent. Whereas when you say it exists in the concordant class, it's like a bigger umbrella, so it's more wide. So you think whether there is something that is that and that. That's how you go about it, right? That's why we say class or something like that. Okay? Okay. Now, what's the definition of... Okay, one sec. Do you need an example? Do you need a correct concordant example when you're trying to prove something? This is really important.
So the text says that we do, but then it would follow that sign product is not a valid sign in the proof that sound is impermanent
Why?
because it does not have a correct concordant example.
Pot.
It follows that pot is not stated in the proof.
Good, so that's why, when we make syllogisms, most of us don't talk about the example. We only state the syllogism. But what was that? Proof statement. Proof statement? We call it proof statement. In Indian texts, and then therefore in Tibetan texts later, there's another word that we use which is called druna. It means proof statement. And how you use a proof statement is very different from how you say a syllogism. So syllogism is take sound, it follows it is impermanent because it is produced. And if you want to talk about an example, you have to say, for example, pot. But that's not how it's said in Indian texts. More commonly you say, if whatever is produced has to be impermanent, for example, a pot, even sound is produced. So in Indian literature and in Tibetan texts, this is how you state a syllogism. It's bigger than just subject, predicate, reason. That's why I was insisting on 3 modes is so important. The idea of generating inference is you have to have understood the pervasion somewhere. That somewhere is your correct example. After you have understood it on an example, now you are thinking about it somewhere else. Where is the somewhere else? Your subject. So Gen always gives an example. Gen always gives an example. He says, when you were younger, in India we do this a lot. Did you grow up in India? Yeah. Did your parents ever tell you you should study or you should eat? And did they use examples? They didn't. Oh God. So in India, generally a very common thing is, if you have a cousin who's very intelligent and they studied very hard and they're doing very well in life, they are a correct concordant example of why you should study. And if you have one of those uncles who never got married, didn't succeed very much in life, is still living with their parents, is not particularly bright, is always struggling, they become examples of discordant classes. So when we were growing up, they would always tell us, Atisha, you better work hard because then you will be very happy when you're older. For example, look at that cousin of yours, how happy they are and how well they're doing. Okay? And then, but if you don't study hard and you don't work hard now, later on in life you will face a lot of difficulties. And then they'll talk about that other uncle of yours who's having a hard time. Okay? That's why examples work. Because for you to understand that the reason needs to lead to the predicate, you have to be able to understand it somewhere. First you understand it somewhere else, and then you bring it onto the subject. Okay? So, the correct concordant example is an example which helps you understand the pervasion, and then helps you take the pervasion onto the subject. It has to do a lot. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So, in the following, suppose the 2 people are debating. A person, the challenger says, take sound follows is impermanent. And then the defender says, why? And then the challenger says, because it is a product. And then the defender says, except. It follows that valid inferential cognition has necessarily not been produced in the mind of the defendant.
In that moment, it has not
In
been
that
produced.
moment.
In that moment, realizing sound is impermanent, not being produced. That's why when it is a correct sign, you don't have inference. Correct? If it is a correct sign, can you have inference that realizes sound is impermanent? While it is a correct sign.
A moment after. But it follows that a moment after it has also not been produced.
Why?
Because a correct concordant example has not been stated.
No pervasion. It has been stated before, not in that moment. Got it?
Now I don't.
Let's do it. So now there's a process of how it works, inferential process. Okay? First, my very intelligent cousin, what is his name? Amit. He's actually my aunt's chacha. What is chacha? Uncle, right?
Father's elder brother.
Father's elder brother. But he was my aunt's elder brother. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So Amit Chacha was the correct concordant example when my father used to tell me, Atisha, work hard, you will be happy later in life. For instance, look at Amit Chacha. Okay, and I was like, oh, very inspired. Amit Chacha is doing very well in life. Now, and then he said, but if you don't work hard, you won't do very well. For example, I'm not going to say the person's name. There was another Chacha who was not doing very well. Okay? Now, at that point, what's happening in my mind? I'm thinking of Amit Chacha and I'm saying, Amit Chacha worked hard. Because he worked hard, he was able to do well. Right? Professionally, of course.
Yeah.
My other cousin didn't work hard and therefore he didn't do well. Okay? After having thought of my two chachas, now I'm thinking about myself and I'm saying, like my chacha who worked hard and did well, and like my chacha who, because he didn't do well, because he didn't work hard and therefore he didn't do well, if I work hard, I will do well. If I don't work hard, I will not do well. And so the examples have already been considered before. Now I'm just thinking about the reason and the predicate. So now sound is impermanent. Sound is impermanent because it is produced. Someone says it. Okay? So you have two people who are debating and the challenger says, take sound, it is impermanent because it is produced. Your ears hear the product. If before you have heard this, you have already thought of everything that is produced has to be impermanent, and you have thought of it on something. You can't think of it in random, right? You have to think of it on something. So you've understood that everything that is produced by causes must be impermanent, and you've done this reasoning on a pot. So the pot has helped you understand that if it is produced, it has to be impermanent. And space has helped you understand that because it is permanent, it cannot be produced. Once this has happened for you, and you've understood the pervasion, now you're saying, is sound like a pot or is sound like space? And then you say, no, sound is like a pot because like a pot is produced, even sound is produced. And in the same way, sound needs to lead to impermanence, the same way product needs to make it impermanent, even sound has to be impermanent if it is produced. And if it were not produced, or if it were permanent, it couldn't be produced. For example, space. So the correct concordant example and the discordant example have already been considered. That's why when you state the syllogism, you don't have to give the example then. Because by then, you've already considered the two before. So the process is, first you understand the pervasion on the correct concordant example, you understand the counter pervasion on the correct discordant example, then you give the syllogism. And then in the next moment, inference arises. Yeah? So there's an entire process. Is that okay? Yeah? Yeah. Why are you asking Tarig questions?
On the basis of just one concordant example or one discordant example, one is extrapolating the entire range of, which is a bit much.
It sounds like it's a bit much. And that's why Buddhists have a hard time when they're discussing certain things. This is one of the harder points. So if you all come in November, then this will be discussed in this room and debated over there. Because this is one of the harder points. Right? Okay? How this works. Okay? But, are we clear? Now the question is, which part of the definition of forward pervasion has correct concordant example? Where in the definition of forward pervasion do you find the discussion of correct concordant example?
Forward pervasion.
That which is
Forward
ascertained
pervade is that which is obtained
to be existent only in the concordant class
only in the concordant class.
by someone for whom it has become the second mode. Where does it say correct concordant example? Where is the meaning?
For someone ascertained in only the concordant class.
So to ascertain it
For
only in the
someone
concordant class,
who
you need a correct concordant example?
What? Yeah, no, but when does
That's
it
one
say?
thing. So today your debate is, for today's, do Do you need a correct concordant example to generate inference? Or can you generate inference without a correct concordant example? First question. Okay?
How will we access it? Like
In the debate,
Yeah.
you do the definition.
Because according to the debate, it does. The text says it does.
The text says it has to.
Yeah.
But that meaning of has to also has to be reflected by the definition, right? So, take the definition of forward pervasion, say it so that it's clear, and then in the definition of forward pervasion in the proof that sound is impermanent, for something to be the forward pervasion, does it have to be ascertained by on a correct concordant example? If you say no, then if you say no, then the discussion of correct concordant example in the text comes where? It comes in the section that explains what is necessary for a forward pervasion. And then it talks about concordant class, discordant example, discordant example. So the text says concordant class and discordant class, concordant example and discordant example are necessary to understand forward pervasion. So to get a forward pervasion, you have to know the concordant class. Where in the definition of forward pervasion does it say that? Now this debate is more important because you're trying to say, to understand the forward pervasion, do you need an example or not? That's more or less what you're trying to prove. Okay? That's the first question. And second question is, what does it mean for someone for whom it has become the second mode? What's that? If we didn't put that in the definition, is there a problem? The last part of the definition. Not clear, no? So these two. Start doing it, and then I'll come to you while you're debating, and then you can add some material to this, okay? So let's just start with this for the forward pervasion first, and then after we've done this, tomorrow we can do a little bit more of forward pervasion and counter pervasion, and then we'll do a very interesting thing, which is the order of which needs to come first.
Counter
Forward or counter, or are they simultaneous? That's like the most important debate in forward pervasion. Okay? So just start doing the forward pervasion, get the definition, check each one. Why does it say existent in? Why does it say existent in only? Why does it say for someone who has become the second mode? And where is the idea of concordant example coming in all of this? Yeah? Just do this. Yeah? Much like you do the property of the subject. Okay?
Okay.